Professor Sabato, thanks for joining us.
Happy to be with you as always.
Great. So first of all, Tuesday, huge night for Rick Santorum. He wins in Colorado, and Minnesota, and Missouri. Colorado, I think, especially surprising. What does this Santorum sweep mean for him and for the Republican contest generally?
It's called buyer's remorse, and it's not just an economic concept, it's a political concept. And by the way, to be fair to Mitt Romney, this is not unusual. If you look back to the nominating processes in both parties, you see some buyer's remorse about half the time since 1960, whenever an incumbent isn't running in the race. So it's affected a lot of potential candidates. Some of them have won in November, others have lost, because it's a long time from February to November. So let's not conclude too much from what happened on one night in February.
But buyer's remorse, generally, you're defining this as Republican voters having started to settle on Mitt Romney, realized he wasn't the guy?
Maybe it's more those of us in the media and the punditocracy who decided to declare Mitt Romney the nominee before Republican activists were ready for that. And so perhaps those voters in those three states last night said, hold on, slow down. Let's think about this for a little bit. Let's reconsider. That's part of it. I think the other part of it is the continuing problem that Romney has with social conservatives, with very conservative Republicans who show up in every entrance and exit poll as having voted for one of his alternatives.
Now, looking forward, Mitt Romney, toward the end of this month, we get Michigan and Arizona. He's based on polling, he seems likely to win Michigan, but is this now a must-win for him? I mean, is he mortally wounded if Santorum beats him in Michigan?
Well, I don't know if it's mortally wounded, but I'd say he'd be in the hospital for a while.
Right.
And it's a busy primary season. He can't afford that.
Now,
Santorum, of course, is thinking about contesting Michigan, which surprises me a little bit. Arizona is really the state where both Gingrich and Santorum ought to be headed. That's the state on February 28th where Santorum might be vulnerable.
You mean Romney might be vulnerable?
Excuse me.
Right. Okay. Now, this question of electability, it's really come to the fore after this Santorum sweep on Tuesday, because it seems to me a big part of the Romney sort of electability, kind of inevitability argument has been that he has the machine. He has a lot of money and has the resources, therefore, to create organizations across the country, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of people on the ground. You now look at Santorum winning basically in most of the places where money is not the deciding or overall arching factor. You look at Florida, very expensive media market. Santorum chose not to compete there. But he seems to be doing extremely well against Romney in places where you don't have to have the most money. Flash forward to November, any opponent of Barack Obama is going to be pretty well funded, right? So I wonder, do you think people have overrated the money issue in looking at Romney as a formidable competitor?
Well, you can make that argument. I would say for the primary process, though, the reason Mitt Romney did so poorly in those three states, in addition to the reasons we've already given, is because he didn't spend. He spent almost nothing. His super PAC spent almost nothing. You see, I think Romney took for granted that he was going to do well. He bought the line from the pundits and the media that he was the likely nominee. So he skated through those three contests, and it cost him dearly. What he learned last night in Colorado, Minnesota, and Missouri is that he's going to have to spend and spend big. He's going to have to keep his foot on the gas pedal every single step of the way if he's going to get the nomination.
Okay, would we now expect then a barrage of negative ads against Santorum? Obviously, it seemed to have a positive effect for Mr. Romney in terms of Newt Gingrich. Does he then pivot and, along with the super PACs, attack Santorum? And would you expect a similar effect on Santorum?
I would think that Romney is going to unload on Santorum with everything he's got. Defeat focuses the mind. It focused Romney after Gingrich defeated him in South Carolina. This will focus Romney as well. He's going to open up on Santorum because he has no choice. Now, remember, that does not solve Romney's underlying problem with the base. It doesn't get them excited or enthusiastic because, in the end, they simply pick him rather than a candidate that has turned out to be, in the voters' minds, not what they had hoped he would be. And that's what the negative advertising does. It turns people around about an opponent, but it doesn't necessarily let them think better of you.
Now, one thing that would obviously please the Republican base is, for example, a more aggressive pro-growth economic message, a more aggressive plan to reduce tax rates, simplify the tax code. Romney has really resisted going there. Do you think it's too late to make a serious conversion to real growth economics? I don't want to knock everything he's proposed. He has a lot of kind of moderate incremental changes that would be helpful. But if he decides to basically go after the Republican base now, is it going to appear sincere?
Well, it is February again, and it's even early in the nominating process. We just started this process January 3rd. This is early February. So, no, I don't think it's too late. Let's also remember that Romney, like most candidates in his position over American history, he's learning about the process. He's learning about his own inadequacies. One thing he's learned is, whether he likes it or not, he does not excite the base. They are not in love with him. And they're only going to be in love, perhaps, if they are at all, with ideas that he proposes. So your suggestion is one I would think would be on his desk, on his table. If he can excite Republicans with something similar to what you proposed, a growth plan that includes both spending and tax components that appeal to conservative Republicans, that might give him a lift going into the rest of the primary season.
Okay, well, let's hope he we're going to hope he moves in a more positive direction on growth economics. On this general electability question, we talked about his money and organizational strength. It seems another piece of the electability argument is that he's kind of moderate and inoffensive to large numbers of people. But now we see polling out of your state, Virginia, saying that he's not doing that well with independents against Mr. Obama. Do you buy generally the electability argument with Mitt Romney, that he can appeal to people that other Republicans can't?
He's a generic Republican. And if the economy is bad enough in the fall, you need a generic Republican without enormous liabilities in order to win the election against an incumbent. But notice what I said, there has to be a really bad economy. Now, if there isn't a really bad economy, does anybody think that Newt Gingrich can win or Rick Santorum can win? The answer is equally no, maybe more emphatically no. I would argue that certainly Gingrich and probably Santorum would lose by larger margins than Romney if the economy is clearly better. So any Republican nominee has to hope that, not hope, but accept as reality that there must be a bad economy for him to be elected in the fall.
Okay, another aspect of winning an election, being electable, is being able to win arguments against your opponent. And this seems to be another argument that Santorum is making to Republican voters now, is that on Wall Street bailouts, health care, environmental regulation, he can offer what he calls a clear contrast to President Obama. Do you, looking at, obviously this is going to have appeal to conservative voters, but looking at it outside the process as you do in terms of beating Obama in the fall, if that's the goal, do you think that's a reasonable argument, that he can draw more of a contrast and possibly succeed in debates where Mr. Romney can't because his health care plan is similar to Obama's, et cetera?
Here's where Santorum's argument is strong. He will be able to present more of a contrast. He will be able to excite conservative voters more and produce a higher turnout among those very conservative voters. Here's where his argument fails. He's going to lose far more independents and moderate swing voters than Romney ever would, because Romney does have a very mixed record. The conservative Republicans are right. They know that Mitt Romney, if elected, will probably displease them on occasion. Maybe it's frequent occasion, but it's at least on occasion, given his history, to judge from his history. they will be happier with a Rick Santorum in the White House. Their problem will be getting him there. It will be very difficult. Your moderate swing voters, the ones that actually determine presidential elections in the key swing states, the big 7 swing states, I don't think they're going to be particularly open to a Rick Santorum, at least as I see Rick Santorum presented to the American electorate today.
Okay, very quick follow-up. On this issue of swing voters, we think of those Reagan Democrats in the industrial Midwest, a lot of them pro-life, pro-gun. It strikes me what some people call the bitter clingers after President Obama's famous remark. It strikes me that they're not going to be turned off by Santorum. Is that not a real picture of who the independent voter is?
Well, no, that's not. Actually, most independent voters are college educated, graduate educated. They've rejected partisanship. They've embraced, in some cases, issues substituting for party. So, no, I would argue, and I think the numbers from the exit polls in 2008 bear me out, those, quote, Reagan Democrats voted for McCain. They were part of his 46% coalition for the most part. I don't think there are that many additional votes to bleed out of that group for Rick Santorum or any Republican candidate.
Well, okay, I think McCain got in the high 50s. I would say, who knows, maybe Santorum could get into the 60s if he reaches that point. But I take your point.
Possible.
Professor Sabato, thanks for joining us.